Welcome to the Tech Panel.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The podcast where tech minds meet.
Oh, hey, before we get started today, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell.
Welcome to the Tech Panel. I'm Arvin.
And I'm Jamie.
And joining us today is David Blanch, the CTO and co-founder of Bitpool. With over 20 years of experience in property tech and software development, David has built a reputation for turning data into actionable insights that make buildings more efficient, sustainable, and accountable.
At Bitpool, David focuses on making data accessible using AI to create practical solutions and advancing open source technology to improve the property sector. Rather than just discussing AI, he applies it in real-world ways that help building owners, operators, and tenants see immediate benefits.
Join us as we dive into how Bitpool is revolutionizing the industry, the evolving role of predictive analytics and property management, and what the future holds for AI-powered building solutions. You won't want to miss this conversation with one of the leading voices of property technology. David, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming around. Why don't you set the scene for us, highlight to the audience what exactly it is that you do, the company that you work for, and the value that they offer to the industry.
Yeah, so I'm the CTO and co-founder for Bitpool. We connect with building data to create operational efficiency within buildings, amongst many things. We have our business established in Queensland. We work all over Australia, and we're also we've got business in the UK as well. We're starting to break into the UK market. Heavily focused on access to data in building systems, which we'll get into a little bit later on, which you might find very interesting compared to other tech companies. And then bringing that back up to our cloud platform where we do machine learning. We're obviously heavily involved with AI at the moment, and provide a platform for our customers to do reporting and gain insights into operational efficiencies within the properties and large portfolios of properties.
And define for us like what an ideal customer for your organization looks like.
For us, our ideal customer is a customer who has a lot of buildings. And that might sound bland, so I can reword that for you guys. But large portfolios of buildings, and I can explain why that is. So buildings themselves are very complex. They have a lot of different systems in there. So when you walk into a commercial office property, you'll be walking in, you'll go up in the lift and you'll think, okay, this is great. And I walk up into my office space. Through that journey, you've actually gone through a whole heap of engineering systems that allow you to seamlessly access that property. So firstly, it'll be security, permissioning you into the building. Then you go up through vertical transport, through lift systems. There's air conditioning systems that control indoor air quality and temperature. And then there's fire systems that obviously is for life safety and protect you whilst you're in the building. So a building itself is extremely complex to build, to own, and to operate. You'll typically have upwards of 15 to 20 service providers who look after the property, and then a facility manager who looks after, and there might be a team of facility managers, and that's just for one building. A lot of our customers may have 100, 200 buildings, 40 buildings. So that's our ideal customer, is a customer who has a lot of property that is complex to manage. And if you can imagine, with property, with that complexity comes a lot of inefficiency. And if you'd like to do a test, the next time you're in Brisbane City, go to Kangaroo Point on a Saturday night and have a look at the city skyline, and have a look at how many lights are on in office buildings in the Brisbane City when they're not occupied.
Yeah.
And then you think about the sustainability impact. You know, there's obviously a big push on sustainability, but you look at some of these simple things and you would say,
Do you know what? I used to work in Sydney CBD.
Yeah.
And even back then, which was a little while ago, I'm not going to disclose how long ago, or long enough. I used to think the same thing. I'm like, what are all these lights on for? Like, why are all these empty spaces like still lit up? Why is all this happening?
and I think that's what you can see on the surface.
Yeah.
You know, underneath that surface is a lot of other inefficiency. That is actually very hard to identify. If you think about it, you know, if you looked at a property from the outside looking to it, you know, if I said to you, okay, well, how's the property operating? It's nearly impossible to tell
Yeah.
without having access to these different systems. And there's digital systems within those properties that manage all those services, but they're all siloed. So they're
Okay.
all separate systems that we look to connect to and extract data from and centralize that view.
Okay. So moving from that point, so you're working a lot with AI at Bitpool now. So, and you've got the bringing buildings to life through AI? What does that mean in practical terms?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. This journey probably started for me 10 years ago, and at the time that the technology wasn't available. So our history has been very much seated in access to data within property. So buildings contain this wealth of data. There's a heap of data in. A lot of that data is trapped in those silos, and pretty much what happens for a building, to understand how it's operating, someone with a technical mindset needs to go and find out what's happening.
Yeah.
The building isn't responsive in that way.
Yeah.
So it's a passive object, and we often refer to it as an inanimate object.
Mhm.
People look at it and it's just concrete and steel with all of these systems. I think what we're seeing with AI is it's going to give us an opportunity for a property to actually communicate back to a user what it's actually doing, what the ideal operating conditions are for that property. And that's really important for the building to be able to do, because in our industry, there's a massive skill shortage. I mean, there's a skill shortage across everything in tech from what we see, but especially in property. So if I'm setting the frame right, you've got these large, complex buildings, lots of them, not a lot of skill set to manage them. They're actually extremely costly to run as well. Plus, we're trying to make them more sustainable. So we see AI, essentially enabling that building to tell its own story, which is really at our end goal, and creating intelligence within the buildings. We've talked a lot about one building. If you think of 100 properties,
Yeah.
I want those properties to be able to communicate with each other. I want each one of those properties to be able to tell me its ideal operating conditions, different performance metrics, compare those buildings
Mhm.
between. So if I had 5 properties and I wanted to sell 2 properties, well, which 2 would I sell? Potentially, I don't want to sell my best performing properties, but how do I know that? So in practical terms, we see the immediate application as being providing intelligence to the building that allows it to actually communicate with people. And that's LLMs are obviously showing that that's quite possible.
Before we dig into that, I want you to help me get rid of this rumor that I heard long ago when I moved to this city. Is there any truth in the rumor that buildings are kept on the lights to positively affect the skyline?
Oh.
I haven't heard that rumor before, to be honest. I would suggest not. For a building owner, they're paying for electricity to run those buildings. The buildings themselves are actually valued based on long-term leasing and their operating outgoing. So the outgoing cost for the property can actually directly affect the valuation of the property,
Right.
which is extremely important especially for customers who are looking to develop new property as well. So I haven't heard that rumor before. I don't. Someone could correct us, I'm sure, but I don't think there's
they
any
will.
truth to that. Yeah. I think someone could.
The city council person's like, I don't know what they're talking about.
It's
Yeah.
like, what?
I mean,
What
you guys would
rumor?
have seen we have Earth Hour as well, which
Yeah.
is where all the
Lights out.
and that's another risk for potential
Yeah.
customers, is if the lights don't turn on. It's a pretty bad look on your brand as well, right?
Can we talk about that for the record? It's
Yeah.
called Earth Hour,
Yeah.
and it's to get us to turn the lights off and
Yeah.
But the lights go straight back on, and it's in the middle of the night. They're
Yeah.
not even supposed to be why do you just keep them off?
Correct. I mean, logically, I think it's more, a symbol of, what things could look like for a positive future as well. But I look at it and if you can do it on one night,
Why can't you do it all the
on
nights?
most?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting, question, because you sort of look at things very logically I always like to put myself in the view of the public, and I say, like, we're pushing sustainability messaging, which we want to do, but then we see these large, big commercial office towers that
Constantly on.
constantly on.
Yeah. You'd think reasonably if we had the Earth Hour, it would turn all the lights on, and there wouldn't be someone flicking the switch back on. They would, but it wouldn't activate the lights. You'd have to be in the building and be like, I actually need to turn this back on.
Maybe that lends into your theory, your rumor,
Very slick.
that it is for the
practically,
skyline.
there is actually no light switch that people turn on. There are some light switches around the room, but it's all digitally controlled.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, we need to figure this out.
There's not a person who walks around the building turning all the lights off. But it is a great it is a great question. It's a perplexing question because it's such a simple solution. I think as much as we talk about technology a lot, we're a technology company.
Yeah.
There are a lot of simple measures as well that don't get considered or are overlooked.
I imagine there's bulk majority of the buildings in our cities are, I don't want to call them heritage, but they're definitely not smart buildings. Like they've been
No.
built decades ago. What's the likelihood, or wait, how much money do we think without an AI system? That's what I'm looking at. Without an AI system taking over, highlighting you to the risk of how much you're losing, what do they stand to gain by activating a system like this in a typical skyrise?
That's a great question. You've touched on a sore point for our industry. So the term smart building. So you would say, well, what is it? What is a smart building?
Mm.
And the first thing we go to is something like artificial intelligence
Mhm.
and machine learning. But I've often said I prefer to define what a dumb building is before I define what a smart building is. So if you can define what a dumb building is, it will tell you what you shouldn't do. Let me break it apart for you a little bit in some pieces. Um, a lot of the what we call legacy buildings, so buildings that are probably more than 5 to 10 years old, have these digital systems within the buildings that are siloed. So it's actually very hard to go in and get data and get visibility. And then you scale that problem across multiple properties where they have different systems, different manufacturers. It's not like web services where you have these consistent APIs.
Yep.
Essentially, you're dealing with 40-year-old communication protocols between these building systems that you just get what you get. And it's actually very hard to deal with as a cloud platform. There's a lot of sophistication that we put into our technology to actually manage that. And if you picture the data that you can get is not structured or named. So it's not that light is level 22, office light 1. It could just be random numbers. The first challenge that you have to overcome before you can create any value is to actually extract data from the building. For us, even without the use of artificial intelligence, the immediate value that you get from a system like ours and some of our competitors is it's about visibility. So if you're operating a property or a group of properties, if you picture, you will have occupants complaining about things like temperatures and the lights aren't working, or I've waited 10 minutes for the lift to come down
Mm.
and pick me up. It's always about visibility. Once you can gain visibility, the next logical question you ask is, well, how do I, from that visibility, what do I do? How do I understand? And that's where we start to see the limitations with technical skill sets within property. It's like, okay, I can see, but how do I interpret this? Like and through property, you get a lot of different skill sets. So you will get, commercial managers, you'll get engineers, you'll get sustainability engineers, all these different types of skill sets within the property. And classically, you have to be highly technically skilled to be able to understand what's happening in that property and understand the data. So immediate value is visibility. And then the next logical question is, well, okay, how do we create value and understanding for non-technical people?
Mhm.
So for the facility manager who may not be technical, how can we empower them to take this visibility and create value? So one of the examples would be tenant complains that it doesn't feel nice in the space. It feels stuffy or something to that effect. If we have indoor air quality sensors, we can see CO2 levels, which is carbon, particulate matter, which is the amount of particles in the air. But as I'm talking to you guys, like, what does that actually mean? If we start to then say, okay, well, what artificial intelligence can start to do is tell us, well, the CO2 level was over World Health Organization recommended levels for a period of 2 hours, and this would have affected people's ability to make sensible decisions or something to that effect. There's actually a lot of metrics to that, but it's about taking this highly complex data and turning it into something that anyone can understand, which is the only point you create some.
I'm going to press you on this a little bit harder because I
keep
really,
going.
I
What he
really
does.
want to
Love
understand
it.
this. What do they stand to gain financially? Because I know every
Yeah.
single person who runs a building doesn't, in my experience, really care about the user experience. These are assets. The money, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I love your tough question because we actually did a pitch. So we're down in Sydney, and I was fortunate enough to be pitching to a potential customer, but a person that I'd worked with the industry for some time. And they asked us the same question. And our pitch was very technical in the sense that the value that we offered, the value that our product offered, we were pitching it in a way which was, okay, we solve the access to data problem. We can create insights and things to that effect. But that wasn't their value. So, which is the question that you're asking. And it's going to lead us into a bit of a delicate topic, I think, when we start to talk about AI. But operational efficiency can come in many ways. So if we identify issues within the building, we can reduce your operational spend. So that's the dollars that are going out of the building. Now, what is that? That could be equipment that's running when it shouldn't be. It could be too much fresh air coming into the building, which is causing the heating and cooling system to either overheat or overcool. And that's actually significant dollars. And that's just one component of it. There's another example with operational efficiency, which is just how, if there's an issue in the property, classically what will happen is the facility manager will get a complaint from the tenant. The facility manager will grab that complaint, send it to a contractor. So instantly you're paying money as soon as you send that to the contractor. You're saying, Mr. Contractor, come out and have a look at this problem for me. They're then charging you per hour to come into the property, diagnose the problem, leave, grab any parts or things that need to be fixed, and come back. That whole process is actually quite arduous versus some sort of intelligence that's continuously looking at data and coming back to you and saying, actually, this is the problem, this is why it's important, and this is how you fix it. And that's the real important piece that I see with artificial intelligence is versus something like analytics. Analytics will say, you had this problem from here to here for this duration and things to that effect. What we have the ability to do with artificial intelligence is actually tell someone how to fix it efficiently.
So,
sorry, you go.
Well, this wouldn't in essence eliminate that person coming out and fixing. They're still going to charge you per hour if that device breaks. It really sounds like you're saying you stand to gain customer satisfaction or the tenant satisfaction. And again, I feel like this comes back to value recognized only if that is something that you truly value.
Correct. Yeah. I can explain why they've, and we get into the tenant experience thing, I think, a little bit later. The real value that you're creating there is reduced time of the problem actually being there. So if you can reduce the investigation time, you're both saving dollars, and also if you think about it, let's say a lift cars example, we're actually doing a lot with vertical transport at the moment. If you can identify when a lift failed and people were entrapped and actually communicate that back to the lift provider or the tenant.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot in this that we haven't touched on, which is around, you talk about customer service. It's like, okay, if I just tell you that I fixed something versus if I have data and information that shows you how I fixed it, there's automatically an increase in trust back to the tenant and the occupant. Versus, if we said this, if I said, oh, it's too hot in here. And then, your building manager says, yeah, we fixed it. It's comfortable now, versus I say it's too hot in here. The building manager comes back and says, yeah, we can see that. We can see that it was hot for this period of time. And this is what the issues were. And this is what your comfort level would have felt like during that period of time. Automatically, I feel like I'm going to believe it more than just something that's verbal,
we fixed
right?
it. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's an interesting, I think the question that you're asking is a challenging one, because we, as technology companies, I still think we struggle answering that question.
Yeah.
We know technically what we're doing, but what's the, we can tell you that we can reduce operational costs, we can improve tenant satisfaction, we can reduce your operational headcount. So, if it took 4 or 5 people to do sustainability reporting, we can bring that down to 2.
Sure.
And things like that. But I still think we're discovering, the true value. And you talked about, do building owners care about that tenant satisfaction piece? I'll probably say to you, do you want to explain or expand on that a little bit? Because it's an interesting perception that you have.
I can only speak to my own personal experiences, but I've definitely been in situations. I think we've probably all been, if you've lived in an apartment at some stage in the city, you've probably been in very likely an older building at some stage where things are not the best. And it does not seem like they're getting ahead of these. It's more like, if it's going to break, or it is broken,
Yeah.
it will be fixed. But if it's something that will just improve the overall feelings of the tenants, it's not something that tends to get addressed
Yeah.
as a primary focus. But all that aside, I think what I was trying to get at here is if we build a new building today, chances are it's going to come with all the latest and greatest technology that will allow you to
Yeah.
leverage this technology.
Yeah.
And those are going to be running at prime efficiency. But then that's a fraction of the buildings that we have in our city skyline. The majority of them are these older buildings that we're talking about. And I imagine that they don't have access to these really awesome tools. And how do we encourage them to gravitate in the direction of utilizing tools like yours?
It's another great question. You're asking a lot of good questions. The perception that the brand new buildings we build are efficient would be incorrect.
Really?
I was hoping
But
that was the
I
case.
was actually thinking, really?
Not-
Because a lot of people would just be using the cheapest, crappiest versions to make it a smart building, I'm assuming.
Not necessarily that, and not necessarily that they're completely inefficient.
Mm.
They just don't operate the way they should,
Sure.
even the way they're designed. And we
Yeah.
have a lot of challenges in new construction, especially with supply chain coming through from COVID, and that sort of flow-on effect. Picture when a new building is built, typically all of the budgets that are set somewhere between 2 to 3, even 4 years in the early development
Yeah.
stages of that building. So if you think of supply chain increase,
Yeah, okay.
typically for the contractors who are putting in technology into a building, it's a 2-year cycle. So if I gave you a fixed price 2 years ago and now I have to deliver that today, I could have some challenges
Yeah.
delivering that.
Yep.
The other thing is technology is advancing so
Mhm.
quickly on a 2-year cycle. Some of the technology that I tell you that we should be using today could be outdated in 2 years' time
Yeah.
as well. For me personally, I think to explain this a little bit easier for you, new buildings have better infrastructure. It doesn't necessarily mean they operate more efficiently than an old building. And I'm talking about commercial office. Apartments and hotels do operate differently. But if we just look at commercial office, think of it as that a new development would have better infrastructure and access to data, not necessarily operating better. So it's got a lot of modern technology, but sometimes not set up properly, and a whole handful of things there. And it's the same problem for the older properties, which, in the property ranks, you have premium A grade properties, and then it goes B and C.
Right.
So for the C grade properties, there is actually a very big opportunity, because if you've got a 15-year-old system and you don't want to completely change out that system, you can actually breathe new life into it with platforms like ours, where you could have a system. We've connected with systems that are 15 and 20 years old, and then put new intelligence on top of those old digital systems. So, picture within the building, you have all of these little compute devices like PLCs and things to that effect, if you understand industrial automation, but like little compute, there's thousands of them in a property. You then put software on top of that. So you will have an operating system of some effect within the building. And then there's cloud services like ours that come in. So yeah, don't think that the new developments and the new developments come with a lot more challenges as well because of modern technology. So things now that are coming in, like with cybersecurity requirements, is a big thing. So if you think of a 20-year-old building that's digitized, like how do we secure
Yeah.
that property? Does that sort of explain?
Yeah. I think paraphrasing here, obviously what you're getting at is that older buildings have a strong likelihood of running not as efficiently as they could. Newer buildings, even with the technology, doesn't necessarily mean you're leveraging it. You may have the capacity to listen and learn from that data. But again, going back to that skill shortage of the building managers and such, if they're not upskilled in such a way that they know how to leverage that data in a way that's meaningful to leverage gains, whether it's by maximizing energy or offsetting carbon, whatever else it is, then you've essentially got a smart device doing dumb things.
You eloquently put that. That's exactly what it is. I mean, if another catch-all for this is most property today is managed via opinion. Like data is used from these different systems, but if you picture, we have a problem in a property, where it's not performing. So there's what's called a neighbors rating for a property, which is an energy performance rating that is a lease requirement. So if I come to you and I say, this is a 5-star neighbors building, you're going to lease that property off me with that understanding. We have to meet those targets. Let's say there was a problem with that and we were consuming too much energy. What would happen today is you would have probably 4 or 5 people, maybe 6, like a lot of different stakeholders who are interested in why is that happening. They would come into the property, go through all of these different systems, pull apart data, spreadsheets, all sorts of stuff. And then inevitably someone has to draw an opinion from that data and say, well, we think it's this, and this is what needs to be fixed. Versus when you have access to data, like rich data, and you're using technologies like artificial intelligence, you can then make data-driven decisions that are accurate, that are not opinion-based. I mean, all 3 of us here could have an opinion on a topic, and who's to say it's right or wrong? I think some of the benefits of this technology is it doesn't make opinion-based decisions.
Well, how would that be though? Like, is there a standardized methodology in place for buildings that state this is what your energy rating should be based on how many floors or anything like that?
Yeah. That's the neighbors rating system, correct? So that was you're testing me a little bit, but that was introduced over 15 years ago.
Okay.
It's been, I mean, Australia as a country is extremely progressive when it comes to sustainability, amongst other countries in the world. So yeah, there is a rating system that happens with buildings. You get rated on that annually. The building's designed to achieve a rating, and it works on stars. So you can have 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6. For a lot of our customers, if the building was designed with a 4-star rating, they want to increase that rating to 4.5 and 5. And why is that? Well, the property is more attractive to tenants as well.
Yeah.
Properties to attract a new tenant, especially if you're in premium A grade, you're looking for key anchor tenants, what we call a key anchor tenant. So someone like one of the big banks or something like that. It actually costs a lot of capital to attract and retain that tenant. So ratings are an important part.
So we're on the subject of like efficiency now and whatnot. So what are some of the practical steps that building owners can take to enforce better efficiency?
That's an interesting question. You're asking a lot of interesting. So I would say to you, Bitpool is a company, and we've always been very passionate about this. A lot of companies, and you see a lot of greenwashing in the sense that companies will come out and say, our technology can reduce energy consumption by 30%.
Yeah.
And that's not who we are. We are a technology company that puts a tool in someone's hand that enables them to do that. Interestingly, with technology, no energy is saved until someone takes action.
Yep.
So we can only identify issues within a property or predict what's going to happen, but we're not in the business of actually saving energy, believe it or not. And I think probably some people back at my office will be cringing at the moment, going, "Oh, please don't say that."
Why did you say that?
But it's really important to understand that principle, because then it focuses your company on what you're building. We are building a tool for anyone to be able to analyze the operational performance of their property, for them to then be able to go and take action. And that's a really important part of what we do, is actually informing the user when we give them performance metrics or we show them where things aren't operating correctly, that we actually tell them how to fix it in simple English language terms. So in relation to, what are some things that customers should look at? For me, I always encourage customers to look at the data that they already have within their properties, which there is a absolute wealth of, not just machine data. So we can process electricity bills. There's flat files. I've seen some properties where, the facility managers kept a running spreadsheet of activities for the past 5 years. I mean, there is an absolute wealth of data that we now have the technology to be able to process. So I always encourage our customers, the first step is to understand what data you have within your property and how you can create value from it. One of the things that we see with new developments is a lot of technology is put into these properties that is completely underutilized.
Yeah.
So it's a poor investment. So it's really around understanding, what is the specific problems you're trying to solve in your property, and then using data to inform decisions to solve.
I feel like we're getting closer and closer to the idea of what can we do to show tangible profits that can be made to encourage people to invest in products like this. And you made it to we're talking about now the topic of, tenant experience and how, if you can make this, say, a 4-star or 5-star energy building, you've now encouraged someone to take residence inside that building. And I think this is starting to get us closer to like a realistic example of how we can start to use your system. Like if you've got an older, dumb building, we'll call it for lack of a better word. All you could do is say, energy rating is X. What can we do? We could turn off lights, but you're not going to know which lights to turn off or which ones are really holding you back. With this system, install it. Now you can have insights and understanding exactly where you're losing all of your energy that's hindering your performance capabilities.
I mean,
This is second time this cut me off.
no, we've got a delivery. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I wouldn't limit it to things like energy. In energy is an important part. So when we start to talk about tenant experience, let me just explain property at scale a little bit, and then we'll actually talk about tenant experience, because I think tenant experience, it's a nuanced topic, because I look at the occupant. In reality, does every occupant even know what a neighbor's rating is, or
I didn't.
No. And so when we talk about tenant experience, it's a very different thing. So let me just go back a step, and it goes back to when you have a portfolio of buildings. If I have 100 buildings, let's say I had 10 tenants per building, or even 5 tenants per building across 100 buildings. I mean, that's a lot of tenants.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people to manage. Without technology that can geographically scale, you then don't have visibility, which means you inevitably can't provide reliable service to those occupants, or not reliable service, but not the best service either. So, to give you an example, we last week connected 60 buildings in the UK remotely, and we've got complete visibility now over all of the outgoings, all of the billings, energy, water, gas. So for our customer that we were doing that for, that was extremely important for them. Prior to that, they would have had to have gone building to building to do that. So without a cloud-based system, you really are building to building. So to manage those properties is a nightmare from that perspective. That is really where systems like ours come to life. When you talk about the tenant experience and the impact, how AI would impact that, or any technology, really what it's about is we want to make sure that we're providing an optimal space for the occupant to be productive and happy. That's it. That's the job of technologies like ours and the building automation systems. You start to go through other services within the building with the tenant experience. And what does a tenant want? And I'm talking about the individual in the office tower. Well, they want to be able to walk in seamlessly. They want that frictionless entry. We don't want to be sitting there trying to badge our card and get up and wait.
Yeah.
We don't want to be waiting, 10 or 15 minutes for the lift. We want the lift to come out in 1 or 2. And then when we walk out onto the floor, we want nice open space office.
Not
nice.
for it to be freezing cold, because it's always freezing cold.
And when we talk about technology in that respect,
Yeah.
I don't. The tenant, as in, if it's a key banking institution or something like that, they certainly need certain operational technologies like ours for their own sustainability requirements. But the actual occupant and the tenant, I feel, isn't looking for technology. They're probably looking for the opposite in a lot of respects. I don't know how you guys feel sometimes, but it's, we've got so much technology in our lives. I actually enjoy when there's no technology around.
And you
to
have a
some
bit
respect.
of a detox from it.
Correct. So, do I want the smart app to get me into my office and things like that? No,
He does.
Yep.
I don't
You
even
do?
need to look at him.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I know he's like,
I hate carrying keys.
yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, you still don't have to carry a key, but because now they've got hand scan and all sorts of other
Yeah.
things. But I think depending on who you're talking about with the tenant, that tenant experience and their association with technology
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. He's gone deep, I can
And
tell.
you guys let me know, like, because I know you're going to cut this up. So if you want
No.
to pause and go deeper into some things, I'm trying to just
Yeah.
the smart building space, and it's interesting. We've got some customers who actually don't refer to them as smart buildings anymore because, um, there's a lot of hype in our industry. The industry can be quite skeptical of new technologies because of things of the past.
Yeah.
The old black box theory, and that, artificial intelligence definitely suffered from that, I would say,
Mhm.
in the earlier, probably 3, 4, even 5 years ago. But yeah, it's quite a deep topic. We could probably talk about this for hours.
Oh, we've got 20 minutes.
Okay.
What's on the forecast for your organization? What do you see as the future for data-driven buildings?
So for us, it is actually, where we are today with our platform. So our platform ingests data from buildings. It semantically models that data. There's a whole heap of machine learning that processes the data and then puts it in a usable format for a user and our customers. It's mobile, so everything can go from tablet to desktop to mobile, and mobility is a big piece. And then there's all the compliance reporting and dashboards and, insights that we generate. But for me, I think that's all noise because inevitably what we're looking for, or for what I believe facility managers and property owners are looking for, is to simply be able to ask a question and get an answer, or to simply just have information arrive when needed.
Mm.
Um, Now, future state, I think we'll definitely have digital assistants that manage and operate property, and there'll be people who will challenge that, no doubt. But if you look at the rate of change of even artificial intelligence over the past 3 years, if we
Mhm.
continue on this trajectory, it is inevitable that premise will come to life.
I was actually going to go into like, where do you see this going in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's hard to uh,
Because like AI, it's a game changer.
correct.
But it's a game changer. It's going to continue to progress and, through lack of better words, take over a lot
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah.
So I guess it's hard to predict where we will be in a year with AI now in our environment, opposed to like 5 to 10 years time.
Yeah. I always say to people, be skeptically optimistic,
Yeah.
which is, you should always challenge new technologies that come about. But I mean, even if we look just over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
DeepSeek AI
Yep.
disrupting the entire stock market.
Yep.
You had OpenAI release their operator,
Mm-hmm.
which now, you've got AI agents that can use a web browser and do activity. So if I think of in our world, the building automation system, a lot of the building automation systems in property, which control things like air conditioning and other services around the
Mhm.
building, they've all been upgraded to be web-based. Now there's service technicians that service that equipment. Potentially their roles will be disrupted by this technology. What happens for us in our industry is we are often too skeptical,
Mhm.
which is why it's actually easily disruptable. Um, so I look at it right now and I say, in 5 years' time, we will definitely have buildings on this current trajectory that are being operated, maintained by this technology to some extent.
I see skepticism in the market. Use the example of AI as like similar to when the government told us we need to start wearing seatbelts.
Yep.
Right? We were skeptical of it actually ever having any impact. Like, if I hit a car, this little belt's not going to help me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what we kind of how we treated AI, right? Like, we're skeptical, of it, but everyone is using it. But you're sort of painting a picture that your industry is skeptical of using the systems and therefore are not.
Yeah. It slows down progress, and when you work in our industry for a long period, I've worked in it for 20 years. you'll still see you will still see people say our system's powered by AI and then show you a dashboard,
Yeah.
which is challenging for people who are trying to understand this technology and purchase it. So you've got to break through those barriers, and we often talk about as a company. Sure, we'll jump on social media and post different things, but for most of our customers, we just show what we do in real life demos all of the time. So our platform, we've already released natural voice processing, speech, so you can actually have a conversation with the building and ask it questions. The next steps
kinda
for
cool.
us is, yeah,
Hello, Dave.
Yeah.
yeah. I'll show once we finish.
How was your day?
Yes.
I recently did a piece for the Property Council of Australia where I co-presented an AI masterclass with our agent.
Yeah.
So you think about that, and that's where we are today. I mean, 3 years ago, ChatGPT was writing basic poems.
Yeah.
Now it's prevalent, and I think
Well,
that
you can notice the difference in ChatGPT in the last 3-4 months.
Yeah.
From utilizing it like 4 months ago when it was all scary and it's like it's hallucinating a lot. Like it's making up stuff. And now I'm catching it out less and less and less, like to the point where I'm nearly not at all. Because I do try and do that.
Yeah.
Like see if I can catch it out. But yeah.
well, now what you're seeing, I think what OpenAI did, because artificial intelligence has actually been around for decades. What OpenAI did for the world was put that into a consumer's hand, which is really important. Now, I get all sorts of information through my inbox, and you can pick out how people are using ChatGPT even in day-to-day business.
Yep.
Microsoft Copilot, it's all integrated with your office tools. But when you look at that rate of change, you'd say if we're on the same trajectory, what would it look like in 3 years?
I can't. Are we going to get to the point like in the movies where you're like walking to your building and it's like lights on, whatever you name it. And it's like, turn my shower on, like preheat the oven, like, or like, okay, can you set up the boardroom so this, and this, like, are we going to end up like the Jetsons?
Look, hopefully that'd be cool.
I think that future's already here. It's just a
oh.
matter of can you pay for
I want to be
Correct.
the Jetsons.
The limiting factor in buildings is actually access to these building systems to do
Yeah.
that, so you have intelligence. But I definitely believe over the next 3 to 5 years, you will see the building itself have its own intelligence, which is essentially an AI model that belongs to the building, and it can do
So
and operate.
It will essentially then it will find its own areas of dysfunction. So something goes out and it's going to be like, okay, I know this is out. We're going to fix it ourselves.
Well, this is I don't think it could ever fix.
Assuming it can't, it's not something of manufacturing
Correct.
type thing.
So if it wasn't a physical fix, if there was something operationally where it could predict the best time to start the air conditioning in the morning, because at the moment we use different algorithms to do that based on occupancy and the turnstiles at the front. So it could say, well, I've monitored the traffic flow within the property over the past 5 days, and we're not going to start the air conditioning at 7. We're going to start it at 9 or 8.
Yeah.
But actually something that lives with the building, that's analyzing all of this data 24/7 and actually has intelligence about how that building should operate and how it has been operating, I definitely believe is achievable. And then the next step is allowing it to control. We do have control, what they call control capability, so we can turn things on and off and adjust things. Letting that loose, there's a lot of compliance that you need to consider.
Yeah.
But absolutely within the realm of possibility.
I almost see a future where it'd be really cool if the building had the ability to sell its own services. Like I didn't have to go to an electrical provider or an internet provider.
Oh, how good
I
would
could
that
just
be?
go directly to my building. Like they've already purchased the trunk of internet, and I just purchase a sliver of it for my room, my apartment, whatever it is.
You're talking about a marketplace then as well.
Yeah.
And then you talk, we can get into cryptocurrency, but then you need some sort of digital currency for these AI agents to trade services.
Yeah.
Our R&D guys have played with that.
Is it going to go that way?
There's a lot that would need to change. I don't think that, there's technology barriers, and then there's the commercial barriers. Look, it's possible. I mean, each component of the building could hold its own cryptocurrency. And then, if someone comes and services it and repairs it, then it could free issue that money back to that contractor. Like, it's technically possible. But, the financial world is nowhere near ready for that. I think
Yeah, there's a lot to be done on the financial side.
Or are they?
Sorry.
Or are they?
Wow.
Well,
Wow.
actually, do you know what? You speak to some of like the blockchain people that we've spoken to previously.
They're like, well, you just do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, like I said,
They're like,
technically
it's
it makes
ready to
sense.
go, and it's all a balance of But then I mean, that's a whole other scary thing.
It's just the financial management of a property is quite complex.
Yeah.
They have operational expenses, capital expenses. Having that on blockchain technology provides transparency. Being able to assign budgets to lifts and pieces of equipment within the facility is a great technical idea. It's just baby steps.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you want to bring people, and that's the other thing with artificial intelligence I think we don't do well sometimes, is we try to take people to the end rather than walk them through the start. And it's absolutely a journey. And I always talk about applied technology. You need to apply the technology at the point in time to where it's most practical for people to then grasp it and embrace it.
I was looking for a moment there at your history, and I'm wondering what has the journey been like moving through the various roles and ultimately landing on a CTO, co-founding a
Yeah.
system that manages companies around the world?
It's an interesting journey. So from a very young age, I was always into software development and compute. When I left high school, my parents said that I needed to get a real job. So I went into engineering and service type work, only for a very short period of time, and then went through into buildings. Look, it's been an amazing journey for me. The PropTech and building technology is like the Wild West, I suppose, of technology. Nothing's certain.
Yeah.
There's a lot to deal with and a lot of problems to solve. But actually getting the opportunity to build a company that solves problems that we've known have been there for decades, and we've got a lot of domain experience within our business. It's an amazing feeling when you see the technology do what we should have been able to do 10 years ago.
What would you do if you can go back? Like, what would you say to a younger version of yourself about starting or co-founding a company that can manage buildings like this? Do you think there's anything standing in your way that hindered your ability to do it earlier, or was it just right place, right time?
It was right place, right time. Probably taking bigger risks earlier. Sometimes you can be a little bit too conservative, and also understanding having the ability to get knocked down and get back up is like a really important thing, because like anything with technology, you can pour your heart and soul into building something, and then inevitably things don't go well.
Yeah.
But if you stay resilient and literally just keep going, you can. I look at our company, even where it was 12 months ago to now. I always say to our team, we've always got to stop and see the forest for the trees, because when you look at day to day, it might be minute increments of improvement, but over a 12-month period, you make massive leaps and bounds. So get used to getting knocked down and getting back up.
We spoke just recently to a gentleman named David Kinner, who assists people founding and starting up their own ventures. Thank you.
Kinner.
Colin Kinner.
Yep.
Got both of your names mixed up there. Thank you for that.
It's okay. It's fine.
And he said pretty much verbatim exactly what you said. Tenacity is one of the key things that you need to have as an individual before you can start up a company, because you will inevitably encounter something that will drive you to question whether or not.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we very first released the first iteration with Bitpool that inevitably had embedded artificial intelligence. The amount of people who said it was a smoke and mirrors, doesn't work, it's not going anywhere. I had a lot of people who actually said
people told you AI was going nowhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
I hope you separated that friendship circle.
Yeah. But what you need to understand is it's someone's perception at a point in time, and it shouldn't change especially as a CTO, it shouldn't change your vision for where the technology goes. So you always have to embrace technology early, but also understand that you've got to take people on a journey, and some you drag and some run
Yep.
with you.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So we've got a new thing that happens.
Okay.
So I don't know if you you saw the person walk in with a delivery box.
Yeah, I thought that was odd.
Oh yeah, did you?
I did too.
Yeah, him too. So we have a viewer question.
Okay.
Okay. So we were talking about literally AI assistants and that, right? So this is directed to you. Your AI assistant at home suddenly starts giving you brutally honest feedback. What's the first thing it tells you?
I don't know if I can say that on
Yeah,
your
you
podcast.
can. You can say whatever you want.
Stop being a prick. That's probably what it would say.
Stop swearing at me.
Stop, yeah. No, that's a hard question to answer even.
Mine would literally be like, can you leave the aircon on or off? To pick one. Pick one. It doesn't need to go on and off every 3 minutes.
Mine would probably say, can you fix me?
Yeah.
A funny story. Our house was a smart house at one point in time until I was overseas and my smart house stopped working, and my wife called and said, I can't turn the lights out. What's wrong? So when we got back home, we removed all of the technology from our house and went back to light switches. So,
Switches.
Yeah.
switches.
Switches.
On off.
You are not advocating the best way for your software. I gotta admit.
Oh goodness. Okay, so we're we've got a couple of minutes left.
No, we're actually running tight of time.
Yeah.
We have a question we always like to ask everyone that comes on the panel, and the way I like to frame this is, if you go back in time, restart your company, or if you were in charge of a company previously, knowing what you know now, is there any piece of technology that you would be like, before I start this business, is the first thing I need?
100%. And I've learned the hard way. There's actually 2 pieces of technology, and I will mention a couple of names.
Yep.
One from a cybersecurity compliance and ongoing monitoring perspective, we went on quite a journey with that, and we ended up landing on a platform after some very hard lessons called Drata.
You spelled that?
DRATA.
Okay.
Essentially, what that gives us is real-time visibility of our cybersecurity posture within the business, both to us and our customers.
Okay.
Manages all of our compliance, and it also connects in with all of our cloud infrastructure, so we can and all of the compute for our staff. Without that platform, it's extremely costly, and it sounds like a bit of a pitch for Drata, but it is extremely costly to manage and extremely complex. So definitely Drata from a cybersecurity and compliance perspective. And then from a SaaS perspective, like billings management would be Stripe. We
utilize Stripe.
Yeah, we have struggled with that, and since moving to Stripe, everything's automated.
It's easy, right?
Yeah, it's seamless. It really is. So yeah, they're the 2 technologies definitely.
I think you're the first person that has brought up
Security
and a payment method.
Yeah. None of these other people have been burned. Give them some time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, cybersecurity compliance is a huge thing for us.
Yeah.
Maybe, look, it should be important for all companies.
I like the answers because a lot of the time it's like, AI.
Yeah.
AI. You're in AI.
We didn't get to talk about AI safety either, but no, when you're connecting to a lot of buildings from cloud to building, I mean, you need to make sure that security's first and foremost. So, and we take that very seriously. So, yeah, definitely recommend Drata. Can't speak highly enough.
David, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It's gone super fast.
Yeah, it has gone fast.
This one was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
I didn't prefer really any questions.
I know. Well, there's still 5 questions I wanted to ask anyway.
It's the last of any time.
I have to get you back.
Well, yes, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Look, the remaining couple of minutes here, why don't you take an opportunity to plug your company? Where can people find you, your software?
Literally bitpool.com. If you're looking for us, go to the website, reach out through the website. If you're looking to connect a large number of buildings and see operational efficiency from those properties, then definitely reach out to us. Cool.
Amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Absolute
you so
pleasure, mate.
much.
No worries.
Megan, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning into the Tech Panel. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected. A big thank you to our major sponsor, Codeworthy, for powering today's episode. And join us again on the next episode of the Tech Panel, where tech minds meet.